Oh, hello. How are you? And how'd you get in my house? Wait, wasn't there something I was supposed to talk about? Was a play, musical, movie? Oh yeah, that's right. I was supposed to talk about 1776. Now, I'd like to start off by telling you all about the... Wait a sec. This is not the proper attire, is it? Allow me to use my magical powers to get changed. And... go! Ah, yes. That's better. If I do say so myself. Now, I, the dramaturg, am supposed to teach you, the cast, about the show. But before I do that, let me give you a brief history on the production. First, it was a play. And then it was a musical. And then it was a movie. The movie, I believe, was released around 1972, possibly? Something like that. And before any of you guys ask, yes, it was a musical on Broadway. Did very well, actually. But now, I need to do my job and tell you about the history of the show. Not the production, which I just got through talking about, but the actual history of 1776, what was going on in the time period this play, musical, movie, whatever you're watching it in, has been set in. And it is the time period that the movie is based off of. Ding! Alright, so without further ado, let's talk about the history of the history. Alright, now for the history of the history, we're going to be looking at the times of which this time period of the play took place in. And that would be, take a wild guess, hint, it's the name of the play! We're going to be looking into the times of what was going on during 1776. Wouldn't you have guessed? What was actually happening during that time is we were separating from the British Empire as well as King George. That's what the whole Declaration of Independence was about, as well as forming our own nation. That's what the whole play is based on. And something else that was actually going on during that time, which is a major plot point and discussion topic in this play, is slavery. Little did they know that less than a century later, it would be abolished. But unfortunately, slavery is still going on in some parts of the world, and I don't know what we were doing to try and help that, but we need to fix that. Another thing that was going on was that the only people that were allowed in Congress were rich white men, which they all were. There were no women in Congress either at that time. You know, there were no African Americans either. It was all, like I said, wealthy white men. And actually, during that time when we were fighting the war against the British Empire, they were putting young people in the military as young as, well, if they could walk, they were basically putting them in the army to do something. In fact, I believe it was John Adams' son, one of them, was enlisted in the army. And they were taking all the help they can get because they needed to. We were down by so many men. I think it was like for every 10 men they had, we had one. So they had a lot more men, a lot more firepower, and they were better trained. What we had next to nothing. And yet, we still somehow came out on top. It's like John Adams says in the play. Don't you think that in order for us to win, they need to have something to fight for? Which is an excellent point. And that it wasn't a time of, you know, sunshine and rainbows. It was actually a pretty dark time. Not as dark as, well, the Dark Ages, but not a lot of people were very rich. A lot of people were very poor. In fact, at one point, well, many points during the whole play, they talk about how hot it is. It is very hot, and their clothes were very, very, I believe they were made of wool. Yeah, that stuff is not comfortable. And very, very insulated. Sure, that's great during the winter, but during the summer or any other time of the year, you're going to be melting into a puddle of American independence. So, now that you know a little bit of the history that was going on in that time, I'm going to talk about my favorite for this segment next. What that is? Well, I will be right back. And now we get to my favorite part of this topic. You know how all of you go crazy about the correct translation between, say, a book and a movie, or sometimes even the translations between a play and a musical, or a musical to a movie, etc. Well, we are going back to as far as translations can go. We're going to be looking at the historical accuracies and inaccuracies of the play / movie. Actually, for one brief moment, I'm going to talk about this. The actual accuracy and the translation between the play and the musical, and by extension the movie, everything is almost verbatim. Like, every scene is pretty much, done word for word, as far as I know anyway, as far as I've researched. But now we're going to be talking about how accurate it actually is to the time period. As I said before, yes, there was an issue on slavery, and that actually was real. I don't know how many of you believe that, but that was real. And many of the characters, such as Ben Franklin and John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, and a few of them that are in the background, or not necessarily background, but just you don't see them as much, such as Richard Hopkins. And there's a delegate from Delaware who actually in the play he's there for a little bit, and there's a fight that breaks out in Congress, and yes, an actual cane to cane fist fight, and the delegate from Delaware stops it, and he has a bandage on his face, and like everything's all like, he doesn't look good. He's very old, and he actually ends up going home because he's sick and cannot carry on. He actually had skin cancer, and they did show that in the play. They never said that he had skin cancer, but they did say he had cancer. So that's accurate. And actually, something that you all might find interesting is the Declaration of Independence was not signed on July 4th. It was actually signed on August 2nd. Yeah, I don't know how many of you knew that, but it was actually signed on August 2nd, 1776. So at least they got the year right. They made it July 4th for dramatic effect. Also, there is a bit in there, at times in the movie, and the play, and etc., there are bits in there where John Adams is talking to his wife. Now, his wife is not actually there. What they're doing is, in the play, they're actually reciting letters that the real John Adams and his wife, Abigail Adams, wrote back and forth to each other. And I think that's very interesting. It's most of the time done in song, but it's a very calm and mellow song. It's very, very good. There's one delegate from Connecticut, maybe? I don't remember. But there's one character in there who, maybe New Jersey, they called him Bacon Face in the play, and that's actually true. Back in the day, when people would talk behind his back, they called him Bacon Face. It's not very nice, no, but it happened. And earlier I was talking about Richard Hopkins, I believe that's his name. He was from Rhode Island, and he is infamously drunk in the play. He's always drinking, and he actually that is true. He was a drinker. But I think I've rambled on enough. I think you have a pretty good idea of how it all went down. I do recommend checking out this play, musical, movie, whatever. The movie's actually pretty easy to get a hold of, and like I said, it's very much like the play. So, I'm going to leave you with that. As you can see, it's It's actually pretty accurate historically, except for the one big bombshell that it wasn't actually signed on I keep saying January, on July 4th, but it was actually signed on August 2nd. So, there you have it. Thank you all for watching, and, let's have a good show, shall we?